I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. Uh, well, I mean, if you drove an Aston Martin to increase your machismo in your image, why not ask an attractive woman what her comments would be if she could improve or change it? Uh, and certainly, I didn't have much time to lark around London, and you'll find I didn't exactly spend any time larking around London. I did get to know Annabelle's fairly well, but yeah, if you she made comments about appearance of the car and various things. It, but I just was going there, and she was asking questions and making suggestions, and most of the suggestions were intelligent. I wasn't trying to do some radical act by doing, oh my God, a woman on the board. I mean, I mean, just exactly how frivolous do you want to get? I do have to say there's one funny story that I haven't. I know this, but the Eurovision contest in Europe has everybody, and even in '75 it had everybody. So ABBA would sing for Sweden, and the English had the Beatles or somebody, and everybody watched it. So we're watching it at Woburn Abbey, and she had a living room off her bedroom, and there was I think, black and white TV, 5 linoleum fold-out tables like everybody else had in front of their TV. And it was Lady Tavistock and her mother, who had been a silent movie star at the way at the beginning of talkie movies, and had to leave the stage because she married a Swiss banker. And Robin was there, Henrietta was there, and Henrietta's parents. And we were served by a gay, voluminous butler named Ernest on our linoleum tables while watching what everybody in Europe was watching, which was the Eurovision contest. And I couldn't stand it any longer, so I asked Henrietta to dance, because we'd done that at Annabelle's. And she thought this was neither the time nor the place, so I asked her mother to dance. And her mother was a lovely lady, and she danced like a feather. So we got up from the linoleum tables and stood behind in the seats and danced to the Eurovision contest, which is about what one should do. A vignette of life at the top, and I mean, Woburn was a continuous reconstruction project. And of course, there's the story of Draganda having it towed up for our grand offering to the British press, at which point Henrietta sent me to Newcastle because she was in love with horses, and she's now in New Zealand and worrying about horses. And had to introduce a car. That was not the way to do it. Except it really, we were at Rolls-Royce expense. There was a good deal of resentment of the wealthy in England, as there's beginning to be here. But when we finally got the Lagonda going, and in the beginning, Lord Tavistock had the first car, we had 2 mechanics following him in a Mini. And when it broke down, he would pretend to go pee in a tree while they went and fixed whatever was broken. And it even happened the one time I had a Lagonda in New York, and 2 Aston Martin employees were walking down the street on Fifth Avenue when the car broke. So I called myself. But anyway, he was a perfect diplomat, which is defined as an honest man who goes out and lies for his country. This was lying for his company. But anyway, that was our test program, and not a triumph. The other fun story I had was when we first introduced the Lagonda, went back to Earl's Court. It was 3 months after we'd started, and they gave us the paint prize. And we'd had 60 cars that were in the process of being finished. We got the paint prize. And I went on some morning talk show, like a ladies' morning talk show, and they pointed out to me that there were very few beautiful ladies on our stand, like none. And I said, I probably like beautiful ladies as much as Sir David, but frankly, I'd rather take a beautiful lady out to dinner than drape her over a car, which got a good bit of favorable press, the distaff side. But we did have one Aston Martin Owners Club meeting, I think at the Barclay Hotel, and those were the people who had owned Aston Martin. And David brought his latest Lady Brown, and I must have brought somebody, and Alan was there, and Victor was there, and I think our Canadian friend George Minden came. But the qualification was that one way or another you'd owned Aston Martin. We got along very well. There was no argument over positions of cutlery or anything else. So, as you can tell, I like to wander off the point. I love telling stories. I mean, that's why I'm writing. And if you think of life as a series of adventures and stories, and then it's exciting. If I'd ever had to work for a bank, for 30 years and rise up through the ranks and become the executive VP of the consumer product, lending section, I'd have died. I mean, there's some people who just basically are designed to. I wouldn't have died. I would have gotten fired sometime in the first 6 months. I mean, other than working for Henry Shapiro in Moscow, I never worked for anybody. I'd have to tell you that the Grand Prix business, and Alan went on to Lotus, which people don't seem to remember. And he invited me, and I could have been in the pits for the Grand Prix in Monaco, which has got to be the place to be. But watching a Grand Prix and people paying $10,000 to be in the stands and $20,000 to have a honored position, and it's all over in tenths of a second, I just find one of the most boring things in the sporting world. I've tried to watch it. I've never been to one. Some of you probably have. And if you're in the pits, it's probably pretty exciting. But when it's settled by a tenth of a second, so that part of it, I mean, the Spanish driver who's driving for Aston's father had been a miner setting explosives in a coal mine. Strikes me as also being a high-risk operation with less glamour. Have to pay attention to the cuckoo. This endless number of expensive cars in the $1 million to $2-3 million range. One of the funniest side stories of that is places like Dubai. They have a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit and a couple of Lamborghini police cars with lights on them, and they enforce the 55. And that's where we're selling the cars. So they have a private racetrack down there, as does China, as does 3 in the United States. These are clubs where you can go, and they often have a supply of cars that you can rent. I think the one in Florida is $1 million to join. And, but I don't know what I'm going to do with one of those cars. I mean, if you never get out of first and you've already broken the speed limit, what am I doing here? I once drove to New York at 5 o'clock in the morning and made it in 2 hours and 3 minutes. But the police weren't out, and I hit 150 in the Vantage. But there was not a lot of competition. And I think I could have outrun the police, but I didn't even have a plan. And I went, bye. So I think I wish him well. I mean, I'm glad after all your it's on the London Stock Exchange, which makes it an English car company, whatever its ownership. Not a lot of English car companies around. And but in terms of a personal interest, I said at the end, I mean, when I left the company, I put my Aston Martin pin, which was glued to my clothes for 5 years. I just put it in the drawer and forgot about it. I mean, I'd done my bit. There were just other things to do. I went to Lime Rock for a while when they allowed you to drive at speed. And they don't let that happen anymore. And if you're going around Lime Rock at 50 miles an hour, it's about as exciting as driving around a parking lot at 50 miles an hour. And as usual, I launch forth on a whole bunch of stories which have nothing to do with this. The best thing is, frankly, I'm very proud of the fact that the guy who got me writing was Nick Candy, who's the official historian. And he set me up for a lecture at Harvard, and it was the best attended volunteer lecture. I met him way back when he was at Harvard Business School, and he got 900 people in the room. I think I walked across there's a Charles River there, and I think I walked on the water without getting my feet wet. I had Aston Martin, National Semiconductor, blah, blah, blah. And he got me writing that story. And what I like about it, and what I'm going to like about the Substack thing, is I've got people contributing. How a writer can sit in an empty room for a year and a half, pounding on a keyboard, hoping that somebody out there, someday, if he gets published, if it gets edited, we'll have a book. There's something really exciting about it. And so what I like about that is it's been through the company historian. There's no particularly imaginative bullshit in it. Not that I couldn't come up with it, but it wouldn't have made the cut. No. No, it became Small Boys' Dreams. I admit it, absolutely. If Sean Connery hadn't made those movies, it would have disappeared. Except I did learn one thing which Americans don't know, which is why the British drive on the right side. If you're riding a horse and playing polo, pig sticking, or fighting off the natives with a sword, you're riding your horse with your left hand, and your best hand is used for other activities. So if you rode your horse with your left hand, you might as well drive the English car with your left hand. And then you can grind the window down and engage in pig sticking out the window. And that, as far as I know, is why the British drive on the right-hand side, which amuses the hell out of me. I once crossed over in Sweden when you had, I think, you actually had a land spot, where you crossed over from one side to the wrong side, depending on which side you were going. I find arriving in Paris and in London in the morning and renting a car and driving into London was a major challenge. It's been fun so far, and today was fun, and I hope people enjoyed it. And as you can tell, I'm not speechless, but thankful you're all here, and grateful I had a chance.